The learning target on this lesson is just a real quick review on how to graph linear equations. So you've got actually a couple different options. Let's start with our horizontal and vertical lines. So horizontal lines always go across and vertical lines always go up and down. And because these two types of lines are not on a slant, you're not going to have both an x and y variable. So if an equation has both the letter x and the letter y, it's going to be a slanted oblique line. Since horizontal and vertical lines are not slanted, they're only going to have one of these variables. So a horizontal line is always in the form of y equals just a single number. So if I gave you y is equal to 5, we go to the y-axis and we find 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we draw a horizontal line. And the reason we say it's y equals 5 instead of x equals 5 is if you look at any coordinate here, let's kind of think about 3 or 4 of these, and you write down the coordinates, this coordinate here is going to be over 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 1, 5. This one here is 3, 5. Back here is negative 2, 5. And then right next to it is going to be negative 3, 5. So if you notice all these coordinates, they all share the same y value, and that y is 5. So very similarly, we're going to talk about vertical lines. Since vertical lines go up and down, where it's going to be x, all the x's are the same, so it's going to be x equals some number. So for example, x equals 2. So all the x's in these little coordinates are all going to be 2. So a horizontal line does not ever have the letter x in it, and a vertical line does not ever have the letter y in it. Now we're going to move on to some equations that you're used to. So slope-intercept form is y is equal to mx plus b. So if it's already in this format, and if you notice that the format is already having y equals all by itself, nothing else on that side, and then on the other side you have a number in front of the x, and then another number either being added or another number being subtracted, it doesn't matter. So this number here in front of x is always called your slope. And then the number at the end, which whether it's being added or subtracted, is going to be called your y-intercept. So when we go to graph it, we start with the y-intercept, and because it is a y-intercept, it goes on the y-axis. Then once you have that point plotted, then you're going to move, I'm going to put this in quotes, the slope according to rise over run. So I'll just throw in an example here. How about we do y is equal to negative 1/3 x plus 4. So we start with the number at the end, the y-intercept, positive 4 on the y-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, put a point. Now from that point, we're going to move this slope. Now when I ever ask for a slope, or any other teacher asks for a slope, x is not the slope, it's the number, the numerical part in front of it. So from here I'm going to go down 1, because that's your rise, you're up and down and it's negative. So I'm going to go down 1 into the right 3. And I'll do it again, down 1 to the right 3. And then there is my straight line. So if it's in slope-intercept form, it's really easy to graph. But what if it's not in slope-intercept form? And there's another form called standard. And standard form looks like this. So you have x and y on the same side. So let me just give you an example here. So I've got 3x plus 4y is equal to, we'll make it easy, 12. So, you got a couple different options. Most people will ask you to rewrite it so that it is in slope-intercept form, and then you can go ahead and graph it like we just did. But in my opinion, what I'm going to try and teach you is not necessarily the easiest way I might make you like use your brain a little bit more, but I'm going to teach you the method that requires the least amount of work. So I'm going to teach you about the x-intercept and y-intercept method. So let's kind of back up. An x-intercept is where something crosses the x-axis. So if you look at any point on this x-axis and I ask you to write down the coordinate, like let's say here, that coordinate is 1, 0. This coordinate over here is 3, 0. This is 5, 0. What do they all have in common? All their y's are 0. So when I ask for the x-coordinate, I'm asking for the number here, and then 0 is going to be next to it. Well, if I ask for the y-intercept, which is going to be on this line here, it's very similar. I'm asking for the y, and all of the x's will be 0. So whenever they're talking about the x-intercept and y-intercept, the opposite letter is going to be 0. So I want you to go back and look at this problem. If I'm looking for the x-intercept, I'm going to plug a 0 in for y. So 3 times x plus 4 times 0 is going to equal 12. Here I'm going to plug a 0 in for x. So 3 times 0 plus 4 times y is equal to 12. And now we're just going to solve, because 4 times 0, that's gone. Here, 3 times 0 is 0, it's gone. And so my x-intercept, if I continue to solve here, is going to be 4. So I go on the x-axis and I put a point at 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because technically it's going to be 4, comma 0. If I solve this one, I'm going to get y-intercept to be 3, which is really 0, 3. So I put a point at 0, 3. And that's all I need. So if you have something in standard form and they ask you to use your intercepts, you're just looking for the x-intercept and the y-intercept. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to take a quick second and talk about what some teachers are going to ask you to do. And it's your personal preference. It's your choice. So some are going to ask you to rewrite this into slope-intercept. So you would have to subtract 3x, get negative 3x plus 12, and hopefully you realize you can't add those together. Then to get y alone, you have to divide by 4, divide by 4, and divide by 4. You have to remember to divide everything by 4. You're going to get negative 3/4 x plus 3. Now that you've done all that work, and let's hope that if you do it this way that you don't make a mistake in solving, we're going to start with our y-intercept of 3, which is right here. And then I'm going to move this slope, which means I go down 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want you to recognize that this is the exact same line. Whether I rewrote it and then use slope-intercept, or I just use the x and y-intercept form. Sometimes in class I'll tell you a little secret here. Alright, so when I do x and y-intercepts, I actually don't do, all of this work. I just taught you that because that's the background behind it. But if I know I'm looking for the y-intercept, I'm totally going to cover this up with my fingers. And I'm just going to look at that and I'm like, oh, well, y-intercept is 3. And then if I'm looking for the x-intercept, I don't really care about that. So I'm going to look at that and be like, oh, 3x equals 12. That means my x-intercept is going to be 4. So it is actually quite quick, rather quick, to try and get the x-intercept and y-intercept. But when it comes to your problems, you can decide which way you want.